In 1983, the Soviet Union believed nuclear war might actually begin. Not someday. Not eventually. But that night. Inside underground bunkers, Soviet officers monitored radar systems waiting for signs of an American attack. Military tensions between the United States and the USSR had reached dangerous levels. Nuclear missiles stood ready on both sides. And one mistake could trigger a catastrophe capable of killing millions. Then suddenly, Soviet warning systems detected incoming American nuclear missiles. The alerts appeared real. Computers confirmed the launch. Protocol demanded immediate action. One Soviet officer now faced a decision that could change human history forever. If he reported the warning as genuine, nuclear retaliation might begin. If he ignored it and the attack was real, the Soviet Union could be destroyed. For several terrifying minutes, one man carried the weight of possible nuclear war entirely alone. This is the story of the Soviet officer who may have prevented World War III. By the early 1980s, the Cold War had entered one of its most dangerous periods. Relations between the Soviet Union and the United States were deteriorating rapidly. Political trust barely existed. Military buildups intensified. And both superpowers constantly prepared for the possibility of nuclear conflict. The Soviet leadership viewed American military actions with increasing suspicion. New missile systems were deployed in Europe. Military exercises became more aggressive. And intelligence agencies warned that tensions were reaching dangerous levels. At the same time, the United States feared Soviet expansion and military power. Both governments believed the other side might eventually attempt a surprise attack. This atmosphere of fear shaped military planning on both sides. Radar systems monitored the skies 24 hours a day. Submarines carrying nuclear weapons patrolled oceans silently. Strategic bombers remained prepared for immediate launch. And early warning systems became essential to national survival. Because during the Cold War, response time mattered enormously. If one side launched nuclear missiles first, the other side might only have minutes to react. That reality created terrifying pressure inside military command structures. In September 1983, Soviet officer Stanislav Petrov reported for duty at a secret early warning facility near Moscow. The installation monitored satellite systems designed to detect American missile launches. Petrov was experienced, intelligent, and familiar with the technology he supervised. But even experienced officers understood the limitations of Cold War warning systems. False alarms remained possible. Technical failures occurred. And human judgment still played a critical role. That night initially appeared routine. Operators monitored screens. Computers processed data. Communication systems remained active. Then alarms suddenly activated. The system reported that an American nuclear missile had been launched toward the Soviet Union. Inside the command center, tension escalated immediately. According to protocol, this information needed to be evaluated quickly and passed through military channels. Moments later, the system detected additional missiles. The warnings intensified. Computers classified the attack as authentic. For most military officers, protocol would have been simple. Report the warning immediately. Allow higher command to decide how to respond. But Petrov hesitated. Something about the situation felt wrong. The system showed only a limited number of missiles. From a strategic perspective, this made little sense. A genuine American first strike would likely involve a massive attack designed to overwhelm Soviet defenses completely. Why would the United States launch only a few missiles? Petrov also understood that the warning technology was relatively new. Satellite systems could misinterpret unusual conditions. Errors remained possible. Yet the pressure inside the command center was enormous. every second mattered. If the attack was real, hesitation could reduce Soviet response time dramatically. The entire logic of nuclear deterrence depended on rapid reaction capability. Military officers trained constantly for scenarios exactly like this. Meanwhile, communication lines remained active. Personnel expected decisions quickly. The system continued insisting the missile launchers were genuine. Petrov now faced an impossible situation. Trust the computers, or trust his own judgment. If he ignored a real attack, millions could die without warning. If he reported a false alarm as genuine, escalation toward nuclear war could begin. Cold War military systems were built around speed. Decisions sometimes needed to happen within minutes. There was little time for careful investigation, little time for certainty, and enormous consequences for mistakes. Petrov later explained that he experienced intense psychological pressure during those moments. Everything inside the command center suggested crisis. Alarms sounded. Screens displayed launch data. Officers waited for instructions. Yet he still suspected something was wrong. Eventually, Petrov made his decision. He reported the warning as a false alarm. Then came the waiting. If he was correct, nothing would happen. If he was wrong, American nuclear missiles might already be approaching Soviet territory. Minutes passed slowly. The command center remained tense. Personnel monitored incoming information continuously. Then confirmation finally arrived. No missiles appeared on Soviet radar systems. No nuclear detonations occurred. The warning had been false. Later investigations suggested the satellite system had misinterpreted sunlight reflections on clouds as missile launches. A rare technical error had nearly triggered catastrophe. For years, the incident remained largely unknown outside classified military circles. The Soviet Union treated sensitive nuclear information with extreme secrecy. Public discussion about warning system failures was limited. And the broader world had no idea how close misunderstanding may have come to disaster. The story only became widely known after the Cold War ended and former officials began discussing previously secret incidents. When details emerged publicly, many people were shocked. The fate of millions may have depended on one officer questioning a computer warning. The incident also revealed something deeply unsettling about Cold War nuclear systems. Technology had advanced rapidly. Missiles moved faster than ever. Warning systems processed huge amounts of information. But human beings still needed to make final decisions under extraordinary pressure. And those decisions sometimes depended on incomplete or uncertain information. The Petrov incident was not the only dangerous Cold War misunderstanding. Multiple false alarms occurred on both sides over the decades. Radar systems malfunctioned. Training tapes were mistaken for real attacks. Technical errors generated terrifying warnings. Several times, nuclear powers came dangerously close to escalation because of mistakes. What made the 1983 incident especially frightening was the political environment surrounding it. Only weeks earlier, Soviet forces had shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007 after it entered restricted Soviet airspace. The international crisis dramatically increased tensions between the United States and the USSR. Both sides viewed each other with growing suspicion. Military alert levels remained high. In such an atmosphere, false warnings became even more dangerous. Fear influenced interpretation. Governments expected possible aggression. And trust between superpowers barely existed. Some historians believe the world came closer to nuclear conflict during this period than many people realized. Military planners constantly prepared for worst-case scenarios. And automated warning systems sometimes created additional risks instead of reducing them. The incident also demonstrated the limitations of relying completely on technology. Computers can process information quickly, but they cannot fully understand context, intention, or uncertainty. Petrov's decision mattered precisely because he questioned the system rather than obeying it automatically. Years later, many people described him as the man who saved the world. Petrov himself often rejected dramatic praise. He argued that he was simply performing his duty carefully. Still, the importance of the decision remains difficult to ignore. Had another officer responded differently, events might have escalated unpredictably. Nuclear command structures depended heavily on rapid communication and trust in warning systems. A mistaken report moving through military channels during extreme tension could create catastrophic pressure for retaliation. The Cold War produced countless hidden moments like this. Incidents where confusion, fear, or technical errors created risks the public never saw at the time. Governments projected confidence outwardly, but behind closed doors, military officials constantly feared accidental escalation. Today, the Petrov incident remains one of the most disturbing reminders of how fragile Cold War stability sometimes became. Entire systems capable of destroying civilization relied on technology that could fail. And ultimately, human judgment still determined how warnings were interpreted. Even after the Cold War ended, nuclear powers continued maintaining complex early warning networks. Missile systems remain active. Military tensions still exist between nations. And the challenge of balancing speed with caution remains unresolved. The story of Stanislav Petrov reveals something terrifying about the nuclear age. Sometimes history does not change because of presidents or armies. Sometimes it changes because one person pauses long enough to question a machine. Because in 1983, the world may have survived only because one Soviet officer refused to panic.